Holy cow, guys, the last video set off a firestorm in the comments concerning this story of the lawsuit filed by the Village of Dolton. And yes, this one is going to include some thoughts about Tiffany Henyard, our former SuperMayor. Yes, and I'm going to talk about what we know based on the facts, what we actually know from real reporting. And then we're going to walk through very plainly and simply what can and can't be concluded, what remains to be unknown, and what the realistic legal outcomes could be from this lawsuit. And in the end, I'm going to give you my thoughts about what could happen to Tiffany Henyard based on the outcome in this case. So you're going to want to watch this video all the way to the end, because I'm going to tell you, if this plays out the way I think it will, Tiffany's going to be on the hook for yet another thing that could land her in the clink. Okay, so those are just allegations. These are not actual allegations, but we're going to lay it all out. All right, so let's jump in, and we're going to start by reporting the facts, what we actually know, give you a little bit of background, and then we're going to walk it through. So we better jump to the courtroom for this. All right, this court is now in session. We are here to discuss with you, the loyal and esteemed subscribers, and I'm going to ask you to chime in as we cover the facts, find out what we know, what we don't know, and then where we opine on what could happen to SuperMayor Tiffany Henyard. All right, so let's start with the facts. First of all, I'm finding out after digging in that the two-signature requirement did exist formally on paper. That's kind of what I thought, but there's a little bit of a twist in here, and I gave a hint of that on the last video, but we'll get into that. So multiple sources confirm that the Village of Dolton had a May 2021 village resolution that required two signatures on all checks. All right? And so those two signatures would have been SuperMayor Tiffany Henyard and Village Clerk Allison Key. All right? Now, this is explicitly stated in the lawsuit, and I will give you a link to that lawsuit. So there's two different sources that do confirm that same requirement and the time frame. Two different stories. The link will be in the description. Now, next, the second thing is this. The Fifth Third Bank. Buckle your seatbelts. This is crazy, all right, because I've got the actual number. The Fifth Third Bank processed 251 checks without the clerk's signature. Holy macaroni. I tell you what, that's a lot of checks without Allison Key's signature on it. That occurred between April of 2022 and May of 2023. That is fact. All right. These are the checks that were only signed by SuperMayor Tiffany Henyard, and they were missing the clerk's signature. So the lawsuit claims that the bank knew that these checks were missing the required second signature, but they processed them anyway. What? I would not understand why that could have occurred, because everybody knows that when me and you go to the bank, we're dealing with the bank personally, they don't put up with that stuff. They drop the hammer on us regular people. Although there's a difference between having a personal account and a business account. Now, contrary to what one of the snotty commenters stated on the last video, that I just don't know what I'm talking about. I have 5 businesses. I've set up multiple business accounts. And when I go to set up a business account, it is me, the business owner, who states the rules regarding check signatures. How many signatures have to be on the check, if a stamp can be used, and who is authorized to sign those checks. And then once that rule has been set, the bank abides by that rule. But I have had times in the past where the rules were not completely adhered to and the bank overlooked some dubious activity going on with my business accounts, but I quickly corrected them, but I wasn't able to recover any funds. Okay, so let's move on to the lawsuit, exactly what it's talking about. Now, the lawsuit from the Village of Dolton accuses the Fifth Third Bank of bad faith. That's what it says. So the Village alleges that Fifth Third Bank knowingly and intentionally paid checks that it knew were invalid. And that is in the link of the article. So we won't get someone all butthurt saying that, oh, you're just talking out of the side of his neck. No, this is fact. Only stating facts. All right. It says also that the Fifth Third Bank acted in violation of reasonable banking standards. I have a link to an article that discusses reasonable banking standards from the Banking Dive. And then lastly, it says that the bank had actual knowledge of the two-signature rule. So that wipes away any shadow of a doubt that the bank was aware. They were aware, okay? So basically they ignored it. And we're going to find out what happens when this court case gets rolling. But hold that thought because I'm going to tell you what possibly could happen. Okay, so number 4, as we know, Tiffany Henyard is not a defendant in this lawsuit. So every source that I'm finding claims that the lawsuit is just against the bank, not Tiffany Henyard. So what does that mean? It means that the Village is not yet pursuing her directly in this case, but that's not the only threat that she has. Okay, so we'll talk about that too in a minute. Now, how about what evidence we actually have right now? Okay, and what evidence do we not have right now? All right, well, first of all, there are no reports. There's no reporting that says that someone may have told the bank to do something different. In other words, I brought it up in the last video and we've been talking about it in the comments, and I said, well, the only thing I could think of why the bank would just knowingly pass all those checks with one signature is maybe the mayor said, hey, do it this way. And the village attorney that she had at the time, you all know who that is, maybe the attorney jumped in and said, hey, she's the mayor, do it this way. But there's no evidence yet that happened. So the mayor and the village attorney telling the bank one thing and the trustees telling the bank something else, that's conjecture. So I was wondering if the bank had to choose sides and maybe they chose to listen to the mayor since she was in the seat of power and authority. But that's just theory, guys. There's no evidence for that. And I'm not finding anything in the records, and I don't remember any Dolton trustee board meetings where that was even brought up. All right, so no reporting confirms why the bank processed the checks. That's a mystery. That's a mystery. We do not have any internal bank communications on record. We don't have any testimony from the bank. We don't have any statements from bank employees and the documentation to show who told the bank what. All right. The lawsuit only alleges that the bank knew the rule, but that is the village's claim. It has not yet been proven as fact. And we're going to have to wait until they get in court in front of the judge and present evidence to find out if they have proof to back that up. Now, personally, I think that they should be able to prove that. All right. Third thing is this. No confirmed reports state whether the bank had the two-signature rule on file. Like, we don't have any reports stating, yeah, they pulled the piece of paper and they're showing it and presenting it. Okay, we don't know that yet. Why? Because we haven't heard officially from the bank yet. We got to wait and see what their response is and see what kind of crazy excuse that they may or may not have. Okay, so we don't have the account agreement. I can't share with you a screenshot, a PDF of that bank agreement. maybe it will be presented as evidence once this case gets moving. So we also don't have the signature cards. You know, when you open up the bank account, the business account, you fill out a signature card. So anyone and everyone that is allowed to be signing checks, they have to fill out a signature card, sign it, so that we can see, or the bank can see, what that authorized individual's signature looks like, just in case there's an instance of forgery. Okay? And then we also, lastly, we don't have the bank's internal policy documents yet. Those will come out in the case. Okay, so we can't say with certainty that the bank formally did or did not accept the rule. That's where we are right now, and we're going to have to wait. Now, let's get to some of the big questions that we brought up. Did the bank know about the two-signature requirement? Well, from what we know, the lawsuit claims that the bank had actual knowledge, okay? However, we don't know whether Fifth Third Bank is disputing that yet. We don't know whether the rule was properly filed. We don't know whether the bank had updated signature cards on file or whether the bank was given contradictory instructions by the mayor or the attorney. That was my theory, but we don't know that. So the bottom line is, all we have at this point is the village's accusations. We don't have the proof. Now, let's ponder some other questions here. This is the good one. So if the bank knew about the two-signature rule, why would they process the checks? Like, why? So let's talk about some possible explanations. And this is just me theorizing, okay? So maybe the bank may have believed that the mayor had the authority to override the rule. Maybe. That's what I had said before. Maybe the bank had outdated or incomplete signature cards. Maybe the bank was misled by somebody. No names given there. And it could be that the bank had some, say, internal errors, or somebody didn't know what they were doing, which would be grotesque, okay? And then the bank might argue that the rule was not properly communicated. I'm sure the bank has got an attorney, and if I know attorneys, you know that where there is a will, there's a way, and they can muck up any process and twist things around in their defense. So again, all we know is that the bank acted or is being accused of acting in bad faith, but that is an allegation. Okay, now let's get to the good part. I gave you a little snippet there in the beginning, and I said, what could happen to Tiffany Henyard even though she's not being named in this lawsuit? Well, I tell you what, if the bank loses, this is going to get dicey, and it's not going to be good news for former SuperMayor Tiffany Henyard. So, could Tiffany Henyard be prosecuted for check fraud? That's the question that I have, okay? Even though she's not named as a defendant in this lawsuit, that doesn't clear the way, because if the bank loses, people are going to start to ask for money back. So could she face separate criminal exposure? Well, it's possible, but a few things have to happen for that to come to pass. Number one, the prosecutors must determine that she knowingly violated the financial controls. Number two, they would have to have the evidence that she intentionally bypassed the required signatures. I think that's possible. And then there must be evidence of intent to defraud. That's going to be a little bit harder. She probably could come up with a cockamamie excuse that she was just doing what she thought was right, but didn't intend on defrauding anyone. Now, where that could possibly fall apart is this. Remember back when I did the video about the warrant list, and you remember all of the village meetings where Jason House, the current mayor, he would read off this whole long list of all of the transactions from checks that were paid with one signature that were not approved on the warrant list. Well, that's where we could possibly get into intent to defraud. Why? It's because the bulk of those checks that were written to contractors, to suppliers, to whomever it was for services, well, they were over the minimum amount, the threshold amount that requires you to put it out for bid, competitive bid. And then they review the bidders, make sure that they can do the work, and they take the lowest bid. So all of those checks that went willy-nilly that were over $25,000, well, those checks were sent out with one signature, and they did not abide by the rule to put them out for competitive bid and get the approval by the Board of Trustees before they were mailed out for those people. So that could cause a problem. Okay, so let's talk about outcomes here. Now, if the bank loses, all right, if they lose this lawsuit, well, tell you what could happen. The bank could pursue civil recovery from Tiffany Henyard. All right, because if they're going to have to pay back all that money to the village, they're not going to just sit there and take the big L. They're going to want to claw back that money from the person who wrote all of the checks. But that would require a criminal investigation. All right, a separate investigation, or maybe we would have to add that to the pile of what's already going on in the FBI investigation. And we don't know, guys. This might already be a part of the existing investigation. Okay, so could the bank pursue her legally? Can't talk straight. Could the bank pursue her legally? Well, yes, but only if the bank is found liable. If they lose, oh boy. And also, if the bank can prove that she misrepresented her authority, and if the bank can show that she violated account agreements. All right, so we don't have any reporting yet about the bank wanting to pursue any of this stuff because we don't even know if the bank is going to be found guilty. Now, honestly, I'm thinking at this point, I think the bank is in hot water and they're cooked. I don't see an excuse coming that's going to get them out of this. But like I said before, we're going to have to wait and hear their side of the story. Now, I'd like to ask you this question, or a couple of questions. Number one, do you think that there's enough evidence there, since the two-signature requirement actually was stated to have been on file? Do you think that the bank is going to lose this lawsuit? I'm going to say there's probably a good chance that they're going to lose. I don't see how they have a leg to stand on, but I could be wrong. Now, the second question is this. If the bank loses the lawsuit, do you think they're going to come after Tiffany Henyard? And do you think that this is a clear-cut case of check fraud? Now, I like to watch a few channels that talk about legal stuff and crime. One of my favorite ones is The Lead Attorney. And I've seen videos where there are groups of people who go around doing this check fraud deal where they'll put a deposit in the bank and then go to a different branch and withdraw an amount less than that, and then go to the next branch, withdraw it again, go to a third one, withdraw it again, and then withdraw the amount equal to the full amount of what the first deposit was. So they triple or quadruple in cash what they were writing checks for. Then they go to jail because that's absolute check fraud. Okay. And so we see people getting probation to 1 to 5 years in jail for doing that. Now, that's just for a handful of checks. Okay. But like I said before, how many checks was it? What was the total? We said that there was a total of 251 checks. Now, honestly, they weren't written by Tiffany Henyard for personal reasons. Now, some of them might have been for personal reasons, like she might have stroked a check for her wig or for her nails to be done. But she was acting in her professional position as the mayor of the village, not personally. But still, I think that this could be check fraud. What do you think? I want to hear you post in the comments below, and let's keep the discussion going. And once this case breaks out, you already know I'm going to be on top of it, reporting every step of the way. So stay tuned. This is going to get really good. That's all I got for this one. This is Carlton, and I am out.